humanity was quite a surprise to the Council, especially since their home system resides in a sector of the galaxy that was largely unexplored due to being too barren. Sure, there were asteroids, moons, and the occasional barren plant, but most civilizations preferred not to waste their time terraforming planets, as there were other parts of the galaxy that were far richer in habitable planets. We only discovered their existence when a prospecting ship reported back from a trip going through the sector to see if they can spot any areas of rich asteroids, and stumbled across what appeared to be satellites. They received the transmission, but were frightened that they might have stumbled across some black site, so they left without having read it. They reported the incident to the company, who forwarded it to the Kyrgyzstan government, who had a border with the sector. The Kyrgyzstan are a warlike people, so once they heard that there could be another civilization in the sector, they thought of all the rich resources that could be there, along with another planet to have, so they immediately began preparing for war. The Kyrgyzstan themselves are second to none in military might, having fought amongst themselves for years before making it to the stars. So it was quite a menacing sight to see an entire war fleet moving into the sector. The Galactic Council was furious, but didn't do anything. We couldn't, after all. Nobody wanted to get into a brawl with them. When their ships arrived in what the humans have called Alpha Centauri, they found some satellites and space stations, which were quickly taken out. They received numerous communications from the humans, but didn't bother to listen. They were having too much fun. The messages sent to them had since been decoded. At first they were a mix of awe and surprise, then the next were warnings and threats, sent after the destruction of one of their space stations. But the last message the humans had sent was, "Turn back now. This is your final warning." Of course, the Kyrgyzstan warfleet continued its assault, but their sensors picked up something in the distance. A fleet of human warships approximately 6,000 kilometers away from them. The Kyrgyzstan ships then sent a transmission back to command. "Hostile fleet spotted. Moving to engage." This, however, was their final transmission. A couple minutes later, command lost their signals. They tried getting into contact, but nothing ever worked. The Kyrgyzstan sent in their largest fleet to deal with the issue. By the time they arrived at the last known position of the previous war fleet, they only found a cloud of molten metal. They couldn't seem to find the remains of the ships. They, of course, reported this back to the Kyrgyzstan command, who by this point were outraged. They ordered the war fleet to continue their attack. The only reason why we know about the second Kyrgyzstan fleet, and not the first one sent in, is because while the Kyrgyzstan government was unwilling to hand over the videos of what happened, the humans did. On that day, entire clouds of missiles suddenly began flying towards their ships at extreme speeds. Their point defense guns weren't fast enough to hit them, and the missiles always struck the vital areas, blowing large holes into their hulls with their massive payload of plasma warheads. The Kyrgyzstan war fleet then began trying to determine where the missiles were coming from, but were unable to, due to the fact the missiles were coming from everywhere. Due to the amount of missiles, the point defense guns, which already had a rough time trying to shoot them down due to their speed, were being overwhelmed by the sheer number of them. The Kyrgyzstan war fleet never returned, but before the Kyrgyzstan Naval Command could even begin to send in another invasion force, the human fleet arrived in the neighbouring system. Now able to get a good look at them, the many cameras placed on observation stations on the outer edges of the system were able to send video footage of the human warships. Their warships, at least to the Galactic Council, and all other nations that we know of, are not pretty. Their ships are blocky, yet somehow round, as if they grabbed a block of metal and welded it to an already sleek ship. They appear to be built to function well, but it seemed not a lot of care went into making them look pretty, which most nations in the Galactic Council would say that a ship needs to function well, but also to look pretty. Where was I? Oh yes. The human warships from there began cutting through the Kyrgyzstan lines. It was from there the nations watching the live feed figured out that the humans outclassed the Kazakhstan weapons. Not only were their missiles fast and packed quite the punch, but they also had double the range the Kazakhstan missiles did. The Kazakhstan fleet in the system quickly moved to engage, but as expected by now, were destroyed. However, some frigates and destroyers managed to get close without getting hit by the missiles, having had the larger ships soak up that damage. The frigates and destroyers got within firing distance of their own missiles, and fired off every single one they had, before continuing to move closer to fire with their coil guns. But as soon as they entered the 1,000-kilometer range, they were instantly hit by railguns, and were thus destroyed. The human ships did take a beating, but they just kept going. Their fleet seemed to slow for a bit before picking back up. Then another human fleet arrived. Their ships were far more sleek than the others. The human warships continued unthreatened by the Kazakhstan Navy. Once they had made sure all ships in the system were destroyed, began to salvage the Kazakhstan wrecks. Kazakhstan Command tried to figure out how to stop the humans' advance, but as fate would have it, a fleet of human warships began charging forward, aiming for the capital planet. Their ships engaged the Kazakhstan warships, but as expected by this point, the Kazakhstan ships could do little. It was at this point the Kazakhstan government issued a formal surrender. The human dropship that was sent down from one of their assault cruisers had arrived at the capital building of the Kazakhstan. There they finally met the humans face to face. They are a bit taller than the average Kazakhstan. The Kazakhstans are avians and are 5 of their inches shorter. The Kazakhstans, though muscular to the Galactic Council, looked skinny in comparison to a human. The humans announced that they were going to treat their civilians fairly. The humans then used the Kazakhstan communications to send a transmission to the rest of the Galactic Council, stating, "We are the United Nations Navy, speaking on behalf of all of humanity. The Kazakhstan military invaded our space and caused the deaths of over 5,000 people. As a result, we will occupy all Kazakhstan territories until we have completely reformed the Kazakhstan society and government. We mean you all no harm, but we will fight to our final breaths for our right to exist." From then on, humanity did indeed transform the Kazakhstan society, changing them into a more peaceful race, turning their society from fanatical warmongers to peaceful diplomats. Once all was said and done, the humans left the Kazakhstan territories. They have ever since held a seat on the Galactic Council, and despite doing things with brute force, were quite intelligent. But what scared nations the most is how they were always 3 steps ahead in weapons technology. It makes us wonder, what do they go through in their history that makes them so good at fighting? What wars among their people did they fight that made them such capable combatants on the battlefield? Until the humans tell us, we may never know.